What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL show. You have Chris and Ray. We're missing Bobby now that the draft is over, Ray, but the draft is officially over, which is insane to say. Another one in the books. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's sad, right? It's kind of like you get this big high and then you crash. It's like people who drink energy drinks. Isn't that like the thing? You just have like this insane high of energy and then it's just you crash or too much caffeine and then the crash. We're in the crash right now, but we got some content, right? So that's always good.
Yeah, and before we get into it, I have a funny story. Bobby started with a funny story. I'm going to try to do a funny story as well. But I was on a plane last week, right? Coming back to New York.
Hilarious.
Family on the plane. Of course, you get seated next to the family, right? I had my kid with me, so I'm like the jerk on the plane with a kid also. Kid's crying. But this family had 3 kids. One was about, I'd say 8 years old, one 10, one about 12. So 3 kids, mom, dad. Dad sitting by himself in the front, left his wife with the 3 kids. And those kids were so loud and obnoxious. But, it's fine. It's a plane. You kind of expect those things because anybody could be on it, right? But the thing that blew my mind, Ray, is the 8-year-old was a girl that still used a pacifier and drank from a baby bottle. And I've never seen anything like that.
How do you know it wasn't like a really big, like 3-year-old?
I had that thought. And the reason is because like when she spoke full sentences very clearly, like very well. Like she spoke like an 8-year-old.
So it could have been a really well-spoken, big 3-year-old.
It'd be absurd if it was. She was, big. Like I'm talking like she was like 4 or 5. Like she was legitimately big. Like she was big for an 8-year-old. I just am saying like I think she could have been 12, but I'm like kind of splitting the difference considering she drank from a baby bottle and had a binky.
Okay. So I thought you were going to say this guy was like listening to the podcast or like, watching the draft. I thought that's where you were going with this story. No, it's just a giant 8-year-old who drinks from a bottle and a pacifier. Okay.
That's it, man. That's it. So that's like my kind of weird story. It's not as good as piss and chips, but it's pretty good.
Nothing beats piss and chips.
But before we jump into the content of the show as well, I wanted to just give a huge thank you to everybody who's been following our draft coverage. It was so much fun to do that. We honestly love to do it. And it's also, again, why we kind of started like company number 2, which is Pickpool. I got the shirt on today. Thank you, Bobby, for that. But, we had huge support for Pickpool. For those of you that played it, I'm sure you saw, right? We had over 1,500 submissions. We only talked about it for 3 days. We had, the guys over at the 33rd team talking about it. We had Giants Nation talking about it, Legit Football, and then just a ton of people on Twitter. Bob Lung from the Fantasy Football Expo, just a ton of people showing their support. We really appreciate all of you. Just wanted to get that out there before we jump into things. It was a huge success. There is so much more we're doing next year that I am bursting at the seams excited. Seems like we can't get to draft season soon enough.
It is. Well, yeah, NFL draft season for next year. Sure. But it is all 22 rookie draft season, right? We are about 4 days away from the earliest date by which you can start your rookie drafts. And obviously the picks or the destinations of some of these rookies will heavily impact their stock up or stock down and where they ultimately fall in your all 22 rookie drafts and startup drafts for that matter as well. So I know you got a good format here you kind of want to go through, but we're going to discuss all of that and all the implications from the NFL draft a couple weeks back now and how that impacts your all 22 teams.
That's exactly right. And I appreciate you pointing that out, right? This is the All 22 podcast. We are talking about All 22 fantasy football. It's the only fantasy football game with full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen, where you get to choose personnel packages and have access to PFF data and advanced stats to make decisions each week. That's why we're here. The draft is starting to happen, right? People will start to do their drafts in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks. There's a lot to talk about. And from the draft, I think there's the winners and there's the losers. I think for this episode, since it's our first episode, let's concentrate on the good, right? Let's concentrate on the winners. We're going to go alphabetical order, team by team. But again, we're going to be doing all of this in reference to fantasy football, meaning all 22 fantasy football. And Ray, Arizona Cardinals are the first ones on the board. I don't really have anything positive to say.
Okay. So I'll go, right? And I'm always one of my soapboxes, as you all know, is linebacker strategy in all 22, and how unless you have the elite of the elite, of which there's like maybe 3 or 4 tops in the NFL today, you should go based on weekly matchups as to who you start at linebacker, because it is such a hard position to nail down in a given week because of the design of offenses and what's asked of these linebackers. It's a tough position to really nail down. So if you squint a little bit at the Arizona Cardinals NFL draft class, I selected as a winner Cody Simon, the linebacker from Ohio State. And again, it's the Cardinals, which were basically just a wasteland of defensive talent heading into the draft or heading into the offseason, right? They did sign Josh Sweat. They did draft Will Johnson as well on the perimeter to kind of shore up corner. So if he's healthy, that's obviously a great pick as well. But Walter Nolan, your boy, good against the run, if nothing else. If he doesn't sort of hit his ceiling as a pass rusher, he's going to give you very solid run play and be an anchor in the run game. Cody Simon is more of that traditional Mike stout run defender, just really sound tackling type of player who can get everybody lined up and will just sort of do the right thing, be in position, and make the play. He's not going to wow you. He's not going to be a playmaker. He's not necessarily a boomer bust type of player. So if you squint, maybe not this year because they still need more infusion of talent or a greater infusion of talent in Arizona. But year 2, year 3 of Cody Simon's development here, he's kind of got a decent foundation in front of him as that unit develops to be one of those linebackers that's more so on the positive side than the negative side of your ledger in a given week, to where he's an effective player for you on your roster at linebacker that you can start more weeks than not. So you got to squint a little bit. You got to be a little bit patient, but I do really like Cody Simon, the linebacker out of Ohio State. Walter Nolan in front of him. If that's 2 hits for you, you have a good foundation.
Yeah, I mean, if I squint hard enough, I can see that, Ray. I think that's a decent pick. It's a good call out, right? And I want to just clarify that I liked some of the Cardinals picks. Walter Nolan, guy I like. Will Johnson, guy I like. Getting Will Johnson in the second round, that's huge. I just don't think it benefits necessarily either Walter Nolan or Will Johnson to have that landing spot. I'm not really sure it really benefited anybody else as well, just because I still think that defense, even though you're right, they added some pieces, right? The draft last year, the draft this year, they added some pieces to make it better, but it's still pretty devoid of talent. Like, it's kind of crazy. 2 drafts, dedicating a lot of picks to the defense. We're still kind of sitting here going, might need 2 more drafts, right? Like, so we'll see. I think Will Johnson, that could be a really good landing spot for him if he's healthy. But that's really a big if at this point, considering he fell to the second round, kind of assuming he is not healthy, right? Like that's why I think, to me, it's not a great, this is going to be fantastic kind of situation for him. But let's go to Atlanta, who I do have actually 2 players for, right? Atlanta went into this draft and said, screw the future. We are winning today, right? With Michael Penix, our second-year quarterback, we are winning today. And I actually don't hate it. I don't hate it, right? Because I think that offense has a ton of talent on it. You have a lot of explosion, plenty for Michael Penix to be successful on offense. I don't think there's if you added a wide receiver 3, it's going to make a huge difference for this offense. No, this offense is in a really good situation. So instead, Atlanta went and they got, essentially, in my opinion, 2 good edge rushers, right? 2 pretty good edge rushers, but they didn't stop there. They also added a safety that I had a borderline first round grade on. They got him in the 3rd round in Xavier Watts. But my winner, I have 2. Xavier Watts is going to be one of them, right? The reason for Xavier Watts is, again, that defensive line just got a whole lot better. The edge rushers are going to get pressure on the quarterback. Xavier Watts gets to play next to Jesse Bates, right? How much better of a situation for a safety could there be in the NFL? There's going to be one that we're going to talk about later. But how many better situations for a rookie to go into than to play next to Jesse Bates with good defensive rushers now being added to that team? But I think the biggest winner is A.J. Terrell. And if you look at A.J. Terrell over the last few years, he is, in our minds, he's a top 10 corner. But last year was tough for A.J. Terrell, right? Last year was a tough year, and you can blame it on Terrell. All right, so just pulling up his numbers, right? 82.6 grade in 2021, 2022 a 63.9, last or 2023 a 74.6, and then last year a 69.4. We know corners up and down, but when you have a guy that plays at such a high level like Terrell, you don't really expect it to dip into the 60s. But when you literally don't have an edge rusher on your team, you're in coverage for an eternity, right? And it's always going to turn bad. So now if you're telling me that AJ Terrell just got 2 edge rushers that I like, right? Like I like Jalen Walker as an edge rusher. I'm sure they're going to play him at some linebacker, but as an edge rusher. And then James Pierce, a true edge rusher that's really a speed edge rusher. Terrell's job should get a lot easier, right? So I think he's probably like one of my biggest winners overall in the entire draft.
Yeah, I guess if you really like Xavier Watts, then you'll sit there and say, well, they got 2 pass rushers and someone behind a guy like AJ Terrell, so theoretically his job gets a lot easier. It does from the pass rush standpoint for sure. I still have some questions about the defense. The back 7, yeah, I get the Xavier Watts pick there. I've always been high on Jordan Fuller, and he just hasn't really taken that next step. So enter Xavier Watts. I get it. The 2 edge rushers, the thing is there are some questions about each of them. So, if you wanted to do a little good cop, bad cop here, bad cop, of course, there's questions about James Pierce, not necessarily on the field too much. Jalen Walker, if he's not a full-time edge, is his impact a little lessened? If he is a full-time edge, can he hold up over a long season? Given he is more linebacker size, he's just very good at edge rusher. I tend to think he can and he'll be just fine, but there are some concerns there. And so then you look at it and go, okay, well, did the Falcons as a relatively young team have to be so aggressive in giving up a future first in order to kind of fix that pass rush? We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I could see this being an up year for AJ Terrell, kind of back into more the 2021 or 2023 type of performance than what we kind of saw in 22 and 2024. So 2025 is an odd year. So it looks like the odd number years are where he does his best work. So there you have it. I think up year for AJ Terrell, stock up.
All right. So next we have the Baltimore Ravens. I actually had 3 winners in Baltimore, but if you have any, I'll let you go first.
I mean, if I go first, my literal winner is all of them. But if you want to talk in particular, fine, I'll focus in on the new pick, Malachi Starks, the new rookie safety there. And I mean, it's obvious, right? I mean, the Ravens are one of 2 teams in particular in the NFL that really stand out to where it just seems like everything in the draft just falls right for them. They just stay where they are. They pick arguably the top safety in the draft. And you just put him into a stout defense and just continue on rolling. So they have a great defensive front. They have 2 good cornerbacks in front of him with Nate Wiggins and Marlon Humphrey. You have Kyle Hamilton alongside him at the other safety spot. When you have 2 great safeties like that, in particular, including a rookie like Malachi Starks, who can do it all and is just a sound player all around. He's not just a coverage guy. You can't necessarily come up and make plays around the line of scrimmage or vice versa. He could do it all. That allows the defensive coordinator to open up the full defensive playbook and get creative and put everybody in a spot that works best for them, because he doesn't have to worry about a weakness on the back end and getting burned for taking some risks in the playbook. So really everyone's a winner, but good for Malachi Starks to just go into such a great situation, flanked by an all-pro safety, playing behind a solid, a very good duo at cornerback that's all playing behind a great defensive front. I fail to see the weak point in the Ravens defense. And this just seems to happen to the Ravens over and over and over again in the draft, where they just stand pat and get a phenomenal pick late in the first every time.
Yeah. And I think your first take was the right take. Everybody got better.
Right.
They were all good. They got better everywhere. Malachi Starks, that's one example. He's not even one of the 3 I had. And I agree with you, right? Because if you look at what that means for Nate Wiggins, who had kind of an up and down rookie year, but it was ultimately like positive, right? Like it was a positive year for Nate Wiggins, and you go get him again, like the best safety duo in the NFL to be behind you. But also, how about Mike Green, right? You're adding an edge rusher that was arguably edge rusher 2 or 3 in this draft and fell because of personal reasons, right? Because he had off-field stuff. But, you add that, and if he can step in and he's not suspended or something, that like makes a huge difference for a cornerback, a young cornerback that was just finding his footing like a Nate Wiggins. But Mike Green is another huge winner. Like I understand he fell in the draft, so he's getting paid less. So that's it's not like a winner from that perspective. But if you are investing in Mike Green and from a fantasy perspective, like you talk about year over year over year, the Ravens are the team that just draft edge rushers in the second or third round, and they end up getting huge paydays when they leave. And Odafe Owe is 1 year from free agency. So when Owe leaves next year, Mike Green is the next guy up. And in my opinion, out of the guys that they've done this experiment with, he is by far the best. Like he is by far the most talented of those guys. So you plug Mike Green into that Baltimore defense as an edge rusher with his speed and his pass rushing moves, with those DBs behind him, right, that can buy him a little bit extra time, even if it's a third of a second. Like I expect Mike Green to be in like double-digit sacks by his second year if he's actually on the field and not like in prison, right? Which is like an actual concern.
That just escalated, but okay, sure.
But it's like a legitimate concern. Last guy I have for Baltimore is my dude, Emory Jones Jr., okay? This is who the offensive tackle from LSU, they got him in the third round, at the end of the third round. And I talked about like, hey, if there was a guy that, you know, borderline top 50 pick gets taken in the right situation, it's Emory Jones for me. Like that guy needs to, like, I have no doubt that in a couple of years, he is going to be a starter. We know that they like behemoths at tackle and they got another one. Roger Rosengarten, solid starter for them, right? But I also think he's only got a year left on his contract. So you're talking about a succession plan. I think they did the right thing getting ahead of it with a guy like Emory Jones, who we talk about how offensive linemen, their jobs get so much easier when you have a running quarterback. He now has that, right? This is one of the easiest situations for an offensive lineman to be successful in the NFL. He lands in it with also a situation where he can sit for a year. He's not thrown to the fire. I absolutely love it for him.
Yeah, the rich get richer. That's all it is. That's all there is to it.
Man, I just went on like a soliloquy and you come back with the rich get richer. Okay, we got Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed everything. What do you it's Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
They did well.
Better.
They always do well. Yeah.
Yeah. I always nail
it. It's Baltimore. That's much better. Yeah.
No. Now we have Buffalo. We have Buffalo next. And this is another one. I had a little bit of a hard time finding a winner. I think this is going to be an easier episode for the finding losers episode, but we're not doing that today. We're not going to do that today. I have Landon Jackson as kind of like a, if you squint hard enough, like you said before, winner, because I think, again, they got him in the third round. It's not going to be a super pressing situation where he needs to go there and be on the field every snap of the game. I think they'll find a really good role for him next to some other pretty talented players, right? Like Greg Rousseau will be across from him. They drafted TJ Sanders around earlier, Deion Walker around later. So they're starting to build that defensive line. And if I had to choose one of them to have the biggest impact, I could see Landon Jackson being used in a way that's successful for him because he is more of that run stuffing, strong, hold your ground kind of guy, not necessarily a big pass rushing guy. And they need that, right? Like they need that. They're going to play him the right way. I could see that being successful. Hoping you have something else to say here.
I think
more than I think you're right.
No, yeah, you're right. Let's go to the next team. I think both corners actually do play off each other really well. Christian Benford has just had a phenomenal development arc in the NFL. He's one of the top corners in the league. We talked about him and touched on him as the season went on in 2024, but he's a number one corner, a legitimate number one corner. Opposite of him, Maxwell Hairston, the pick there, he's more of a playmaker type. And I think that kind of works off each other, right? Because you're not going to target Benford too often, right? But if you're going to throw at Maxwell Hairston, assuming his game translates, you're kind of taking a chance there and he can make you pay. He's more of the playmaking type. So I think they play off of each other pretty well. And perhaps Hairston's going to have some more opportunistic targets as a result of the strong quality of cornerback play across from him on the other side. So I think the corners play off each other really well. And then a winner just in the sense of they didn't necessarily get his replacement. He's a young player and has an opportunity to, again, kind of continue to develop there and not kind of be, sort of forced to microwave his development because of impatience or anything else. But Keon Coleman, again, kind of depending on who you ask, people have different perspectives and opinions on Keon Coleman, but he's got an opportunity to step up in year two here and really grow with Josh Allen in his role as well. So it's more of an opportunity to step up for Coleman, but then I think complimentary wise, Maxwell Harrison plays off of Christian Benford pretty well there, and that's a good duo to have when you do have a solid front on defense.
I don't hate that. I would argue the Keon Coleman point. We'll talk about that next episode.
Please do. I can't wait.
Yeah, we will. We'll save that. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers, who they did the right thing for the first time in a long time, right? Like they did the right thing consistently in this draft. And I think there was a lot of winners in Carolina. Like I think Nick Scorton can be a winner here. I think Princely Umana-Melon can be a winner here. But Ted McMillan gets to be a wide receiver 1, right? And I think the debate pre-draft was, is he actually going to get that opportunity? Is he going to fall in this draft? People were thinking that he could fall to like 12, maybe even later, right? Because of his, I guess, lack of speed, which I don't really think is a thing with him. I think it's totally overblown. And he goes to a team now where there's really good compliments to him as well, right? So he gets to be a receiver 1 for Bryce Young, who towards the end of the season was a completely different quarterback and showed that there is the potential for him to resurrect his career as a franchise quarterback. But really the reason I like it is, again, it's the compliments at receiver alongside him, right? Ted McMillan is your receiver 1, and he's the guy that he's going to get the ball a ton and he's going to be able to do a lot. But you have a guy like Xavier Legette next to you, who's this uber athlete that can take the top off and open things up for you. Adam Thielen, professional, can help you with your route running, right? Can be a little bit of a mentor for you, but also can take a little bit of the smoke off you so that you're not getting maybe 20 receptions a game and 20 bad targets a game, right? It's going to make the quality a little bit better. So I actually really like the landing spot for Ted McMillan and what it means for him in all 22 specifically. If we're talking for regular fantasy, maybe you could have predicted some better destinations, but for all 22, right, it's more about that quality, right? Getting quality targets, getting yourself open, making the most of your situation. I think this is a great spot for him to be successful.
Yeah, which to me, I took the flip side of that, and my winner was Bryce Young. He gets a prototype top target now. So now it's on him to make something happen. And really, even dating back to college, I mean, his final years at Alabama, they didn't have a great wide receiver core either. People just assumed because it was Alabama that they were, no, that was the weakness of those Bama teams under Bryce Young before he went to the pros. So really, for years, he hasn't had that true top option to throw to. McMillan at least gives him the prototype for that. We'll see how they develop together and how he adjusts to the league. But it's an opportunity for Bryce Young to show what he's got, and an opportunity for the front office to really give him a true evaluation now, because the offensive line has, the phrase, has crept back to average, if not a little bit better than that. They now have the prototype there. Xavier Legette can slot into his rightful place in the receiving core. You do have that solid sort of still, bringing it veteran in Adam Thielen as well. So Bryce Young's got what he needs. Now it's time to go ahead and execute.
All right. So Bryce Young, that's a good transition because we're going to go to Chicago next. And when we talked about like biggest winners, right? Like overall biggest winners, I said AJ Terrell might be one of them, but is there a bigger winner than Caleb Williams, right? And I actually just made a huge dynasty trade where I basically sold my fantasy soul for Caleb Williams with like 4 first-round picks, some very valuable picks. Shout out to Fran, good trade, buddy. But the reason I did it is because there's no excuse. Like last year, they were saying, oh, they added Keenan Allen. That team got a lot better. They drafted Rome Odunze. But to me, it's like the coaching situation still wasn't good. They've corrected that big time, right? With one of the best offensive minds in football in Ben Johnson. It's not draft related, but we'll mention it. Then in free agency, free agency and offseason, they went and made some trades and made some signings on the offensive line. Drew Dahlman, Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, right? Like, so like they redid the offensive line, but I kind of thought the draft was going to be all defense now, right? Like, oh, okay, we fixed the offensive line. We did a bunch of things. We have the coach. They're going to figure it out. Let's go fix the defense. The defense was in a pretty good spot already, and they just went offense. And I commend them for that. We talk about it all the time. Finding who you're supposed to be, right? What do you always say? Finding your identity, right? Finding your identity. The Bears, to me, did as good of a job as anyone to make that happen. And the beneficiary is really everybody on that offense, but Caleb Williams in particular, right? Now his receiving core is still DJ Moore. It's Rome Odunze, and they added Luther Burden the third. I would be a fraud if I sat here and didn't say, right? Luther Burden, I think, was 9 on my big board overall, and they got him in the second round, early second round. They got Luther Burden, my 9th overall prospect in this draft. I think he's explosive. I think he adds an element that neither DJ Moore or Rome does, right? A little bit DJ Moore, a little bit of a similarity, but still like different in the fact that can be used as that true running back, but also has insane speed as a deep threat. Maybe he doesn't have a full route tree yet, but that's what you have Rome for, right? That's what you want Rome to become. So I'm saying like you have all of these elements in your receiving team, but then, oh wait, we also have Colston Loveland now, who is this fantastic receiving tight end who does everything well, can also block. And it's just, how does it get easier for a quarterback? And again, a lot of these are young players, so maybe it's a year or two away before that fully forms into what it can be, which again, I'm talking about Rome, Burden, Colston Loveland, and Caleb. If those 4 guys stay together for the next 3 to 4 years, that's an insane core for your football team.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to get through all 32 teams at this pace, but in any event, Colston Loveland, I think, is the big winner because he goes into Ben Johnson's offense, and we saw what he did with Laporta. You see how he schemes things up and designs things for his tight ends. So he does a phenomenal job there. So not only it's like, oh, whoa, look, I'm getting picked before Tyler Warren, but then he goes into the perfect situation and avoids going somewhere like Indianapolis where he would have to catch passes from Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, at least for the near future. But he's with one of the best offensive minds of football who has a plan for tight ends in particular. So good for him. Yeah. Caleb and that whole offensive core and their identity here is pretty well set for the next few years. Like I said before, now they just got to go out there and execute.
Absolutely. Okay. I'll try to speed it up then, right? So Cleveland is next. I think there's going to be a lot of losers when we do the Cleveland episode, but the winner to me was Mason Graham, and we can make this one brief. I think the GM is a winner as well, right? I think anytime you trade back in a draft and get a future first round pick, especially when you don't have an opportunity in this draft to add your quarterback, I think that's great process, right? I think that's really, really good process. And you also still got what many people believe to be a top 5 player in this draft in Mason Graham. But the reason I have Mason Graham as the winner is because he's stepping into a role besides Myles Garrett. And Ray, I don't know if you remember when we did the film review, but the biggest thing that I said to you was it was really hard to find those huge plays from Mason Graham because he was always being double teamed. Well, what happens when Myles Garrett is on your team? It's going to be really hard to double team both of those guys, right? So I think there's going to be plenty opportunity for Mason Graham to actually start to make those loud bang plays. And it's going to be beside Myles Garrett. I love that for him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I will still just take offense to. I don't know if trading away from someone like Travis Hunter is ever the right move, but yeah, trading down just a few spots and picking up a future first is typically fantastic value. So I'll say that. Still not sure if you should trade away from Travis Hunter, but that's neither here nor there. I will say we're talking alphabetical order and you just skipped the Cincinnati Bengals. So I assume you didn't really have anybody for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll talk about that pick just a little bit because I see a lot of heartburn about Shemar Stewart in particular. And I kind of get it, but he gets a lot of pressure. And that defense outside of Trey Hendrickson did not pressure the quarterback much at all. And I talked about previously how Texas A&M and that development arc kind of isn't there compared to some of the other big programs in college football. So you have someone with the tools, the traits, who does get some pressure, and he's not necessarily carrying the load for that pass rush with someone like Trey Hendrickson still there. Again, as of May 6th, we'll see if anything changes throughout the offseason, which it might, but I think for now it looks like Hendrickson's going to stay there. And you have a pretty decent duo there, and we'll see how he develops. And that, of course, can make some guys better, like a Daxton Hill, who's probably playing more corner these days and such. I don't hate it. I don't hate the fit. They needed the help on defense. It kind of helps them both, Hendrickson and Stewart there. Again, we'll see how he develops, but I don't mind it. I see a lot of consternation from our Bengals fans and Bengals Twitter. Let it play out. Let it play out.
That's a great point. Yes, I did skip over them by accident, but I did not have anybody for them. So appreciate you picking up that one. Dallas, I want to ask you a question first, but then I want to hear your take on winner. they went Tyler Booker in the first round, right? And they did not address receiver or running back at all, really. Jaden Blue later on. Would you have liked to have seen them in that spot over Tyler Booker draft one of the remaining receivers or like an Omarion Hampton?
Definitely no to the latter. I would not have minded Golden. That would have been totally fine for me. But I don't mind the Booker pick. I mean, my number one guard was Donovan Jackson. So I was more of a Jackson guy, but totally understand the Booker pick. And there's not much to poke at as far as holes go there. And the benefit, or I guess the vision and direction and identity that the Cowboys are trying to then go back to is what kind of worked back in 2016, 2017 and onward when they had that fantastic offensive line. They're doing it again. So Cooper Beebe at center is the big winner for me. He was a third-round pick last year who stepped in and transitioned into center, and as a first-year center in the league, was a top 15 center in the NFL overall. And that was with a bit of a rotation at, not a rotation, but a bit of a revolving door at guard. Zach Martin was kind of hurt in and out, and then you had Brock Hoffman take his place at times. Now he's flanked by all-pro left guard Tyler Smith and a first-round pick Tyler Booker at right guard, and all three of them are just straight power players who can move people. So the Cowboys are going to get back to just getting movement on the offensive line and leaning into that run game that was successful for them, which plays into all of their games on the interior of the offensive line. So it's a big boost for Cooper Beebe. It's a great fit and landing spot for the rookie Booker. And Tyler Smith is just going to keep doing what he's doing. He's Tyler Smith. It doesn't matter what you put in front of him or around him. He's going to be a baller and one of the top guards in the league. So as a whole, yes, if you're looking at Dak Prescott, do you think maybe an extra receiver could have been more impactful in the short term for him? Possibly. When you watch Dak Prescott, the majority of his issues with pressure are when it's pressure up the middle. He does a great job of dealing with pressure from the edges, from the outside against the tackles. It's more so up front in the middle where he typically has some trouble. If you keep the spine of that pocket clean in front of him, his best ball is that seam ball down the middle, which when it's working, him and Jake Ferguson, that's money for them. They can do that all day. So this does help kind of lean into Dak Prescott's strengths a little bit too. So the pick works. We've seen this formula work for Dallas before. It's right up Brian Schottenheimer's wheelhouse. Offensive coordinator Clayton Adams from the Cardinals has a very diverse run game, so this fits into that as well. So it's kind of, back to the future with the Cowboys here by taking Tyler Booker. And again, you can't pass up Donovan Ezeraku in the second round. You can't pass up Shavon Ravel in the third round. So if you have to wait till the fourth round to get your running back, that's fine. Fix the line and then plug the back in later. And that's what they did. So you can't hate it.
No, I don't hate it. I think it was probably, I don't want to say the best draft, but it's top 5 for sure. I think it was a fantastic process. And the only reason it might not be number 1 is because I do think that they left that receiver 2 hole a little bit too gaping at this point, and maybe they're going to try to go get somebody still, George Pickens, maybe somebody like that. But, again, it's like, could you have filled it with some of the guys that were still available in the third round? Yeah, definitely. Or even fourth round, there were some guys. So would have liked to seen that, but still overall very good. Let's go to the Denver Broncos, and I'm going to talk about Snow Leopard, Riley Moss. I think it was a really good draft for him, right? And again, in the offseason, they added Dre Greenlaw, they added Hufanga, I don't know how to say his last name. And now they go and add Jody Barron to the cornerback room, and Riley Moss gets to kind of settle into a position. And he looked great last year at times, like very, very good, right? But now you probably have the best defensive back group, then Baltimore. Like there's a couple teams fighting for it, but like theirs is very much up there, right? With really good safety tandem now, 3 legitimate NFL cornerbacks that I think you can play for an entire game and never have to come off the field. That's the thing. Riley Moss is a good tackler, right? Jody Barron, very good tackler. Like these are guys that are going to have success playing off of each other and together in the NFL. And besides that, the other cornerback on the team just won Defensive Player of the Year. So that those 2 guys, Riley Moss, Jody Barron, huge plus for me right now. Their stock is going to continue to rise. But Nick Bonito as well, right? Like a guy that broke out last year as one of the better edge rushers in the NFL, as really that true, just like speed rush kind of guy. Just his job just gets easier again, right? His job just keeps getting easier because that backfield behind him is just giving him more and more time to make plays. So really like that for him as well.
Yeah, I wrote some notes down for the Broncos, and not at any point in time did Riley Moss come up at all. So, good for you for plugging him in there. I'll just make a real quick note. RJ Harvey on the other side of the ball.
Leopard? You mean Snow Leopard?
RJ Harvey on the other side of the ball. I think this is a good fit as well. The Broncos have been searching for this type of player, and I think, again, Sean Payton has a plan. We kind of saw what he did with his young rookies last year, most notably Bo Nix, but they're looking for that runner to really complement them in an offensive line that is sort of underratedly, steadily improving. I think it's a good fit for RJ Harvey.
It definitely is. And it's also like, again, that's like another fantasy one, right? Like for traditional fantasy football, you have to be so excited about RJ Harvey. And I'm going to be excited to see in drafts where he ends up going, if it's before or after some of the other guys. I saw a couple rankings come up that had him above Omarion Hampton in rookie drafts, which is pretty interesting. And I don't think it's absurd, right? Like, I don't think it's totally crazy. Let's go to Detroit, where I had two winners, right? One rookie and one player that has been part of that offense. But it's Jahmyr Gibbs as the existing guy, right? And the reason being, they added Tate Ratledge, who is also the other winner for me, but the rookie winner. Detroit knows its identity, right? It's going to be a hard-nosed football team that will just bury the ball down your throat consistently. Tate Ratledge is that guy, right? He is a guy that excels at run blocking, excels at physical football. Now he plays for Dan Quinn in that offense next to Frank Ragnow, who, like, can you have a better guy next to you for this type of player? Next to Penny Sewell, again, just like, can there be two better guys for you to fit in next to? And then behind it, it's Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to benefit from this offensive line taking that step up and getting better, and just also, again, getting more hard-nosed football players on that offensive line in front of him. Both of those guys stock to the moon for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the other side of the ball, and I hate dipping into this because it seems like low-hanging fruit, but you go look at their first rounder, Tyleik Williams, and to me, it's a bit of a long-term play in the sense of the Lions are now setting up their defensive tackle duo for when DJ Reader leaves town. I believe it's the last year of his deal. He's getting up there in age. You have a Lee McNeil coming off of that injury. So they had an immediate need, but then thereafter, assuming full health for a Lee McNeil and recovery in 2026 and beyond, that's a really stout duo in the middle that can play off of each other right there, especially against the run. So I think that's a good fit, a nice pair, as all 22 Bobby would say there. Probably still have a hole at pass rusher on the edge, but for the most part, again, just looking on the interior there, I think those two will play off each other in future years in 2026 and beyond, and that's a good fit for each.
All right. We have the Green Bay Packers up next. This is my team, so I'm going to talk about him for a second. I think the winner is Jordan Love, right? The Packers did something for Jordan Love they never did for Aaron Rodgers, which is draft a first-round wide receiver. I didn't agree with the pick necessarily. I didn't love the value of Golden at that spot. Again, we needed a Tet McMillan. We needed a guy that would be a true number one receiver, or at least have that upside. Golden might develop into the Stephon Diggs, but I think right now it's kind of a squint hard situation where there's going to be a lot of development needed to get to that level. I think right now he goes into that mesh of him, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, with, Wicks and other guys kind of behind them. It's another really good player to go into that, and it adds a speed element that maybe you didn't have, right? Taking the top off with Christian Watson's injury, you don't have it anymore. But they didn't stop there, right? Anthony Belton was their second-round pick, a huge tackle that can play left tackle. Rasheed Walker has been good, though, right? So you're adding depth at tackle, which I always love, right? Depth on the offensive line is always a good thing, and there has been a lot of injuries on the Packers offensive line. It just makes sense to me, right? Continue to build that depth, and Jordan Love is the benefactor, right? Like his pocket gets better, that he has more guys getting open quicker. It's just good process for a team to make picks like this, even if they aren't necessarily the names you want, right? And I will say just really quickly, like the reason I don't love it is because Donovan Jackson was on the board at that pick, who I had an elite grade on as an interior offensive lineman. He goes to your division rivals with the next pick, right? that's hard to swallow. And of course, we didn't make that pick because last year we drafted Jordan Morgan in the first round, who really hasn't seen the field very much. So it's a little disappointing from that perspective that you would let maybe not the best decision last year impact what could have been a really good starter for you right now. But all in all, Jordan Love, winner.
Yeah. Just let Matthew Golden cook. Don't start manufacturing targets for Luke Musgrave instead or something. He'll be fine.
All right. Talk to me about Houston.
All right. The Houston Texans. So, and looking at this was tough for me to find a winner because I get the fit. I'm just not sure it was a sort of fantastic selection here for their early picks. But so I'm going to really go down the board here, and I'm going to talk about Woody Marks, the running back from USC. And I love it here because he's not relied on to be a bell cow or starter this year, but he has a great he's great out of the backfield. He's a good receiving type back, which was missing from their offense as a whole last year. They obviously need some more impactful targets in the passing game after some injuries, the loss of Stephon Diggs. You don't have Tank Dell this year, etc. So I think Marks has an immediate role with what he does well, which is a third down type of back, receiver out of the backfield, can kind of spell Joe Mixon a bit here and there, and then kind of develop onward from there, which again, traditional fantasy, that's not that big of a deal, but to the Texans themselves and in all 22, if this is your RB2 and he's getting spell snaps, reaching the minimums, that does what he does best and allows him to grade really well, that's an impact again, for the Texans and in your all-22 team as a young running back. So you don't have to sit there upset about his landing spot because he's not getting 18 to 22 carries a game. He can still make an impact for you, and I really like the fit. And then long-term, we'll see how long Joe Mixon really is for the Texans beyond this year, given his age and money commanded at that spot. So we could see in 2026 onward, if Marks does well, he is the feature guy in that offense. And again, he's still going to be surrounded by a pretty good passing game, a great young quarterback in CJ Stroud. We'll see what improvements they make on the offensive line. They know that has to be addressed. So, hey, if he's not the feature guy while they're still kind of reconstructing that offensive line in year one for Marks, that's totally fine with me. So a bit of a long-term play, but I really like Woody Marks, the running back out of USC.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I think Jalen Noel is a good pick for them as well, who's to me a pretty big winner. The other two receivers that they have that are healthy are both bigger bodied guys now with Jaden Higgins and Nico Collins. But with Tank Dell out, they were missing that kind of get underneath and get open quick kind of guy. And Nola is that to me, right? And I think that's a perfect landing spot. All of my concerns to him pre-draft was, is he going to get into a situation where he can step in, and actually make a difference in an offense? Because I think a lot of receivers have similar skill sets to him that it makes it a little bit hard, right? If he went to the Packers, I'd be like, he's never going to see the field. But in this situation specifically, he offers something very different than what they have. So I really like that. Let's go to the Colts. I actually don't have anything for them as a winner. So curious if you do.
It's a tough one. I guess you could say Anthony Richardson, in the sense of, hey, I got a really big target over the middle of the field who can catch it downfield, who can catch it short, who you can dump it off to, and he can get yak for you. There is no more quarterback friendly target than Tyler Warren. At the end of the day, you can either make it work for him or you're just not cut out for the league. So given the weapons they have, he has big targets all over the place. Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Tyler Warren. Then you have Josh Downs from the slot. A great running game, a good offensive line. I mean, he's the winner until he just fumbles the bag here, basically. We'll see if he can hold on to the job, if he can develop into an adequate passer. He has no excuses. So I have to label him the winner until it's no longer for Anthony Richardson.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's you making the assumption that he is the starter in this football team. So if you're right, then I agree with you. If not, again, that's might not be one. But I'm going to move on to Jacksonville, where I'm just going back to the quarterback again. I think Trevor Lawrence is a huge winner in this situation, right? I talked about, I don't love trading 2 first-round picks, especially not getting a quarterback, right? You don't need a quarterback. That's not what you were trading for. So they trade 2 first-round picks. But, when we did the receiver rankings, I had mentioned, right, Travis Hunter was not my receiver 1 just because he didn't focus on receiver in college. That was his secondary position. So I don't think we really saw the best of him as a receiver. But if you had to ask me if Travis Hunter was to focus solely on receiver, where would I have him ranked? Like, I think if you have him ranked as a receiver only, you're talking about a guy that can be one of the best receivers in the NFL, right? That can make a bigger impact than a Garrett Wilson, right? But that kind of style receiver can be a CeeDee Lamb style receiver, a little bit smaller, but that kind of a receiver. Like, if you're adding that to Brian Thomas Jr. as the two receivers you have, like, that's insane duo for you to kind of build upon. And Trevor Lawrence really hasn't developed into what we thought he can be. I don't think there's any excuse now. I think he can do it.
Yeah, I have no other notes to add there. That is the takeaway for the Jaguars. And everything hinges on that being successful or not. So yeah, you nailed it. I gave you a little more than, yeah, sure. So
I appreciate that, dude. I think the Kansas City Chiefs, we're gonna both agree on this one too. And it's Josh Simmons, right?
Yeah, I mean Josh Simmons and by extension Pat Mahomes. Yes, steal the draft, miracle he was there. I mean the Chiefs now know what it feels like to be the Ravens and the Eagles on draft night. Hey, right. Look at this fantastic player who fell to us at a position of need. It's perfect. Beautiful. So we'll see if he starts out there and kind of, how soon he can hit the field and hit the ground running with his knee injury. But sooner than later, once Josh Simmons is fully up to speed, Mahomes won't have to be, Superman play after play after play just to accomplish, just to complete a pass downfield. So good for him. Obviously glaring need. Good for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think in the next few weeks, we're going to do our kind of personal big boards for rookie drafts, right? Like we're in the All-22 system, like we have the rookie draft ranked by how the NFL took the players, right? We try to mirror what the NFL does. We want to be the closest thing to the NFL in fantasy as possible. So that's why we do that. But personally, Josh Simmons is way higher on my draft board going forward than he is, going to be in the system. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, huge winner because I think essentially they just got a franchise left tackle for the price of a used car, right? A used Honda Civic. Like that is tremendous process. The Chargers are the next team here, and I have a couple winners here, but I really want to talk about two, and it's both receivers. I think it's Trey Harris, the rookie from Ole Miss, and it's Ladd McConkey, the rookie from last year from Georgia. Both guys win, right? I think Ladd is going to benefit a lot from having another guy take a little bit of pressure off of him, and I think Trey Harris wins because he goes to a situation where, again, there's nobody like him there that at least has been good, right? Quentin Johnston, you can say that he has a similar skill set. Trey Harris, in my opinion, is much better at what he does than Quentin Johnson ever has been. So I love that landing spot for him. And I think both of those guys will start to develop together and end up being such good complements that they both end up shining in the long term. So I like both of them in this situation for LA.
I mean, they all play off each other in LA because you could clearly say, oh, well, Omarion Hampton, obviously, right? I think they're obviously Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball. They're a downhill attack there. You've got Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt at tackle. You got a former first-round pick in Zion Johnson at left guard. You have Mekhi Becton at the other guard spot. And you do have Bradley Bozeman at center, who, again, now that we'll see how they all play off each other. But, again, that's a pretty darn solid line on paper, and they want to run the football downhill. So Omarion Hampton gets into a good situation for a running back, which, again, play action. That's Jim Harbaugh's thing. That's going to open things up again for McConkey, for Harris, those big targets down the field. They all play off each other. That's the formula for Jim Harbaugh there. So it's really both of those offensive rookies, and then everybody, all the skill positions benefit as a result of that. You did also skip the Las Vegas Raiders. Las Vegas is before Los Angeles alphabetically. I don't really have much of a winner there other than
not on my list. LV, baby. LA is above LV.
Oh my gosh. LAS comes before LOS. Just saying. So
I'm using ESPN's spelling.
Okay, well, then
ranking.
ESPN can't. I don't know what I'm trying to tell you. So fine. So then I guess we'll go by your list, and now I guess we do the LA Rams. Is that correct?
Correct. You can do that one because I have nobody.
Okay, dude. I'm surprised you have nobody. To me, it's Terrence Ferguson. I love the landing spot for Terrence Ferguson. And to just sort of expand on it a little bit here, the Rams for tight ends in 2024, they had the least amount of receiving yards from the tight end position of any team in the NFL in 2024. allegedly, apparently, they were interested in trading up in the draft. They had their eyes on Ted McMillan. Obviously, it didn't work out, but they're looking for pass catchers. So then they make another trade, and their first pick is in the second round, where they take Terrence Ferguson, a receiving tight end, a pass catching tight end. Clearly, there was a need for pass catchers in general on this offense. They got a nice young one at tight end in Terrence Ferguson. Sean McVay has a plan for him. If they have a plan for him, they want to shore up that tight end spot and the receiving game as a whole. That's going to be a focal point for them. That plays right into Terrence Ferguson's hands. Tight ends, sure, they take some time to develop and get to form in the NFL. However, this was a purposeful pick. This was the first pick they had. They had a need that they've been trying to address in night 1 and night 2. Terrence Ferguson is the one who addresses it for him. They're going to make it work. I think this is a really good landing spot for Terrence Ferguson. Tyler Higbee's in the last year of his deal. So again, maybe not immediate year 1 returns, or at least big returns in year 1, but thereafter, I think they got a plan for Terrence Ferguson, and I typically trust their offensive plan. So I'm a big fan of Terrence Ferguson's landing spot.
I agree with you. I'm a fan of the landing spot for him. I worry that by the time he's ready to make an impact, Matthew Stafford's not there anymore, right?
That's
and
fine.
We don't know who's going to be next, right? I mean, I think he's 38 or going to be 39 years old this year. Like it's about when it's been happening for these quarterbacks, right? Like these ones that make it that far, typically it's around 40 where it starts to kind of go off the rails. So I worry about that a little bit for him, but you're right. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for a tight end that we weren't talking about that much, right? There wasn't a lot of conversation around him to go that early. It's great. Let's go to Vegas now, who is alphabetically next as LV is after LA. And to me, it's Brock Bowers, right? Like Brock Bowers last year was in this offense looking around saying, where my homies at, right? Like there was nobody with Brock Bowers to take any of the heat off of him. And he still went out and did he set the rookie record for tight end yardage? Or I don't know. It was close if he didn't. Now he gets Ashton Genty, who is also arguably like this elite level kind of generational talent at running back that will take a lot of heat off of him. But not only did that happen, Jack Besh gets drafted in the second round as the receiver out of TCU, who is more of that big-bodied possession receiver. And you start to say, okay, now we get to see what the best Brock Bowers looks like, because that rest of that offense now is going to open up for him to be able to do more. I love that for Brock Bowers. I think his value just shot up a lot. For traditional fantasy people that are worried about targets getting taken away from him, I'm sorry, but that's not what we're about. I'm about quality at all 22, right? That's like you're going to get measured more on quality. I think the quality for Bowers gets a lot better.
I just wrote down the Raiders as an entity overall because Ashton Genty's just that good. And I think Jack Bess is solid. So I just wrote down the Raiders as my winner. They just got good players. So they still got holes and didn't necessarily fill their every need, but they got better.
Okay. Do you want to take Miami?
That's a real tough
one. I have guys if you don't.
Go for it, because first of all, I don't even have my spot in my notes anymore because I don't know what's next because your alphabet is not the same as mine. So just go for it.
All right. I have Jordan Brooks and Tyrell Dotson, the two linebackers who are good football players and have been good football players for a few years now. But there was this gaping hole in Miami in front of those guys, right? For one thing, the edge rushers were all hurt. Besides Chop Robinson made a name for himself, but we're hoping Brian Burns comes back this year. Not Brian at all. What's his name?
If you mess up the first and the last name, I don't have any reference point to go.
Who is the edge rusher in
Nick
Miami?
Chubb? Jalen Phillips?
Yeah,
not Nick Chubb. The other
not
Chubb.
Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips.
You notice how I got one of the names right at least?
You did all right. You did all right. I had like a letter. Both of those guys should come back this year, even if it's part-time, right? You have 3 edge rushers now, but in the draft, they go and add Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips, 2 defensive interior players. One of them you really liked, and another one that is a big-bodied, clog it up, right? You have 2 guys that can clog it up and keep bodies off of your 2 just star linebackers who are essentially the identity of your defense now. And I love that for them, right? The problem in Miami is you basically don't have a defensive back that's going to play football for you. Like, you have none. Like, I might try out because like I probably run like a 4.9 still, and I might be like just fast enough to make it for them because those guys are looking thin. But for the linebackers, I really do like the addition of Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips for them.
Yeah, Kenneth Grant makes everybody better, and that's why he was such a phenomenal pick, and I was saying it for months. So I'm glad you finally come around. I'm interested to see what the heck happens with Cam Smith, the second-round pick in 2023, heading into his third year. Big down year for him in 24, so let's see how that shakes out.
All right. Do you want to take Minnesota?
Minnesota,
M-I-N.
yes. I do want to take Minnesota, the Minnesota Vikings, M-M-M-M-M-M-I-N, yes. So the Minnesota Vikings, obviously, I love the Donovan Jackson pick overall. You look at that offensive line on paper, and it's really, really damn good. And that was the downfall of them last year, was injuries to the offensive line. Sam Darnold, in his last 2 games, including the playoffs, was pressured on more than half of his dropbacks. Once Darisaw went down and the other injury to the offensive line, everything just kind of collapsed. That was the cause of it. It wasn't, Sam Darnold Twitter takes. No, it was the offensive line collapsing. Donovan Jackson was my guard number 1, solely just as a guard number 1. But we saw his performance at left tackle for Ohio State in the second half of last season and how he performed there. So he is also a break glass in case of emergency left tackle. So if that tragedy strikes again, they have a better backup plan than they did last year, which derailed their very successful season. You have Darisaw now healthy, Donovan Jackson, you have Ryan Kelly, you have Will Fries on the new contract, you have Brian O'Neill. That's a very, very good offensive line. Then you have Jordan Jefferson, Jordan Addison at wide receiver. You have TJ Hockenson at tight end. You have Aaron Jones as a runner who, again, is one of the top guys in the league. I'm still on that hill. Aaron Jones is phenomenal. He's not talked about enough. So the winner is clearly J.J. McCarthy. Some guys just get all the good fortune. There is nothing you can point to that needs to get better with J.J. McCarthy's environment. It's all on him. There is nowhere you can point if he does not succeed this coming season, because all the pieces are in place for him to step into that role, and he's got all the help he needs. So it's up to J.J. McCarthy. But again, he's clearly the big winner here. They solidified the offensive line, gave themselves insurance in the event that the same type of tragedy strikes as it did last year. So McCarthy, you're stepping into the reins now, and you couldn't have asked for a better situation out of anywhere in the NFL. So he's clearly the winner.
Yeah, he was my pick as well. And I mean, it's obvious. When I was talking about Caleb Williams before, I was thinking about it while you were speaking. It's if you parallel those two environments, like, they're the best environments for rookie quarterbacks, or young quarterbacks, I should say. And I think Minnesota's is better, right? Like, Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the NFL. Arguably, TJ Hockenson is better than Colson Loveland. The offensive line is comparable. Jordan Addison to Rome is probably pretty close, like in reality, although
Addison,
Rome,
maybe.
Yeah, like that, exactly. But there's like a 20 pick difference between the two. But I kind of agree with you. And then Aaron Jones is better than DeAndre Swift. Like, it is as good of an environment as you can possibly have for a quarterback. So if JJ McCarthy doesn't succeed, it is only on JJ McCarthy, right? And it's probably why Aaron Rodgers hasn't signed with Pittsburgh yet, because he's probably still begging Minnesota just to give him the shot. But let's go to New England, who, I think Drake May was the winner. Similarly, it's a similar conversation. Like, offseason, they added Stephon Diggs, and I was kind of sitting there going, that's definitely not enough, right? Like, Stephon Diggs at this point in his career is not enough for Drake May to take the next step. But they draft Will Campbell, who maybe I don't believe is a franchise left tackle, but they sure did, and picked him at number 4. You had Travion Henderson, who adds, in my opinion, the best well-rounded running back in the draft, who can block his ass off for you in pass game. He can be a receiver in pass game. He is shifty as a runner through the holes, like, has insane speed. But they were lacking explosiveness. So you add Travion Henderson, but you also add Kyle Williams to your receiving core, who is this insane explosive threat for you that now complements Stephon Diggs and starts to make a little bit more sense for you overall. Love those two additions for Drake May. It's starting to take shape where I'm saying that nightmare scenario that Drake May was in is starting to look a little bit better. And Jared Wilson is also a good prospect that they took in the end of the third round, who's probably going to start off as a backup center. But again, it's starting to build that case for you have enough bodies where you can start to be, good enough to compete. It's not like a nightmare scenario for you anymore. So Drake May is probably pretty happy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the other winner I would just say is, again, Mike Onwenu, because by adding another tackle into the mix there, you would think he's now more likely to stick inside at guard. Even last year, again, played a third of his snaps, give or take, at tackle. Stop moving him around. He could be one of the best guards in the entire league if you just let him stay home. So could be a big winner there, which would also obviously help Drake May, would also help Jared Wilson at center if and when he takes over. So I think Mike Onwenu is a big winner as well.
Okay, we are moving to the New York Giants, and this is another one where I feel pretty strongly that there was somebody who I think their stock rose more than almost anybody else, and that's Darius Alexander to me. Okay, we talked about him a lot pre-draft, about this insane skill who we knew was going to fall a little bit, but we said at the end of the day, we wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being one of the top defensive interiors taken in this draft in what is a really good defensive interior draft. Darius Alexander now gets to play beside Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, what's his name?
Abdul Carter,
Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, they have so many bodies around him where a guy that, we talked about, I compared him a lot to Johnny Newton, that the Commanders drafted last year in the early second round. And I said, he was going to struggle because they didn't really have anything else. They traded away all of their edge rushers. They ended up getting rid of all their defensive interiors too. And now it really was just kind of Johnny Newton out there doing his thing. And he struggled. Darius Alexander is in the best situation I could ever have picked for him to be successful in the NFL. So Giants fans, I know you're all like kind of up in arms because half of you like Jackson Dart, half of you don't. If you take him out of the picture, and I said to you in the first round you took Abdul Carter, in the second round you took Darius Alexander, in the third round you took Marcus Mbo, that's great. Like, that is a phenomenal draft. And besides that, oh yeah, wait, you got Cam Scatterbo in the fourth, and then you also add on Jackson Dart. Like, that's a fantastic draft, but really Darius Alexander to me is the huge winner.
Yeah, he was my winner. He's the clear winner. Second good draft in a row for the Giants.
Yeah. Okay. Jets I thought was pretty interesting. I'm curious what your take is, but I hate going quarterback so often, but I had Justin Fields because they take Armand Membu. They have Olu Fashanu. They have, Joe Tippmann. They have Elijah Vera Tucker. They've built this offensive line, and then they go and draft Mason Taylor in the second round. And it seemed to me like, hey, you're actually building this for Justin Fields' offense, not necessarily Justin Fields' replacement of the future. And while I would say Armand Membu is going to be great no matter what, right, with Olu, like that offensive line is going to be great for whoever's behind it, I was a bit surprised that they didn't go receiver. I thought Ted McMillan would have been a fantastic complement for what Garrett Wilson does, and those two guys would have played off each other phenomenally. I thought Tyler Warren would have been a great fit there, in the first round at that pick at 7, and they pass on both of those guys and go Armand Membu. And I say to myself, they're not necessarily looking to spread the ball out in this offense. They want to use it in that core group, right? They want to run it behind that offensive line. Yeah, you need that tight end and Mason Taylor to be that receiving option for your running quarterback. But it seems to me like they've built this offense for a running quarterback in Justin Fields. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's an interesting point you bring up because one of my back end winners was Justin Fields' replacement next year. But I will make the case to something that you did say earlier about Armand Membu and his success on his own. And so just kind of connecting some dots here, right? Armand Membu, great upside, 330 plus pounds, 6'5", really long arms, athletic. We all know sort of the tape and the bill and the end of it with Armand Membu, right? Fantastic upside. Put it all together in college in 2024, but kind of still a bit raw. We'll see how he sort of adjusts to the NFL. But you have Olu Fashanu at left tackle there. Then you have Simpson at guard, John Simpson at left guard. You have Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera Tucker, and then Armand Membu. On paper, that is the best offensive line the Jets have had in an incredibly long time. So that obviously helps everybody. But Membu in particular, the new offensive coordinator for the Jets under Aaron Glenn, I believe it's Tanner Ergstrand, if I'm saying that last name correctly. He was the passing game coordinator for the Lions. Ben Johnson was obviously the offensive coordinator there, who's the head coach in Chicago. But he's in the same rooms, right? A branch off of that same tree. The Lions ran the fourth most zone blocking runs in 2024 of any team in the NFL. Armand Membu excelled best as a zone blocker in the run game, 87th percentile among all tackles in college football. That's what he does best. If that applies here, they play to his strength and his style of play, and there's no holes on that offensive line. So I think that helps ease the adjustment period for Armand Membu in the NFL if they can sort of replicate that zone scheme. You also have a more mobile quarterback in Justin Fields for now, which opens things up even more in the run game and can take some stress off that offensive line while adding stressors to the defense. So I think that's a really good situation for Membu in particular. So he was my winner individually by getting drafted by the Jets. I think it's a great landing spot for him, not just because he's a tackle that's going into a good offensive line, but projecting that style of play, I think fits him more than other tackles in this class if they were to have landed with the Jets.
Okay. That's great feedback. Philly is up next. And I mean, I think this is an everyone burger. Like, everyone got better. They got arguably one of the top 10 best players in this draft at 31, similar to what the Chiefs did. And then you also got your favorite safety in the second round with Andrew Makuba. So I think everybody wins. I think both those guys got great situations to go to. But I'm going to say something different. I'm going to say Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter as the two interior defensive linemen. They add Ty Robinson, so that guy will kind of circulate in there to take the load off of those two guys. But Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, it just gets easier, right? Like, yes, less competition. You have Jahad Campbell behind you now, who's like phenomenal linebacker, in my opinion. You have Andrew Makuba over top, so you have a guy that can pick the ball off and start to make plays as you get pressure. And it just gets easier. And it's the freaking Phillies, man. The Philadelphia Eagles, it just keeps getting easier for them. And they just keep having these insane draft classes where the rest of the league is just sitting here jealous, right? Like, it was pretty good. But did you have somebody else?
No, I didn't even want to talk about this. It's the Eagles, man. They all got better. This is just one of those where, again, the NFL let that happen. What I will ask is, how in your alphabet does PHI come before whatever you have abbreviated for the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I skipped the Saints, didn't I?
You did.
The Saints I skipped because I didn't have anybody and I forgot to mention them. But do you have somebody for the New Orleans Saints? I mean, you could say the quarterback that got drafted, because if he is the starting, honestly, I don't want to bash any team right now, so I'm really holding my breath, but I'm about to if you make me.
I mean, they drafted good players, and they just have to
drafted
get better
good players.
I mean, look, I know the concerns with Kelvin Banks Jr., but I mean, he's still good. They got better by adding him to the offensive line. They didn't get worse.
Agreed. I like Kelvin Banks for sure.
Yeah.
But you use your second round pick on a quarter. I'm not going to do it, Ray. You're baiting me. I'm not going to do it.
I didn't say anything. I said they got better. And
is there anybody you want to talk about specifically?
No, no, they got better. Well, maybe if they keep Kelvin Banks at left tackle and kick Talise Fuanga over back to his natural right tackle spot, that is a win for Talise Fuanga, who had, kind of an average rookie year, but again, not necessarily a great situation. And he's an offensive lineman and they take time, but if he can stay or go back to his right tackle spot, that will help his development. That's more his comfort zone. So if the selection of Banks in particular enables Fuanga to move over, that's good news for him. Everywhere else still needs help.
I would agree with that take. I like that take. Let's go to the Steelers. I mean, I think there's definitely an argument for Derek Harmon getting inserted into that defensive front that has Casey Hayward and J.J. Watt. I mean, it doesn't get easier than playing next to those guys. They also had Jack Sawyer, who gets to put into that kind of role. I think Sawyer's a little interesting because they still do have J.J. Watt. They have Nick Herbig and Alex, blanking on names right now, Highsmith. So there's a lot of bodies in that edge room that I think are better than a Jack Sawyer. But I also understand that J.J. Watt is, getting to the older side and, that they want to keep that rotation. So maybe it makes sense. But I actually love the Caleb Johnson pick for them in the 3rd round. Tremendous value for my mind, right? Like, this is a guy that we said he was one of the 7 backs I thought could be an instant starter for a team and be a true bell cow. He's going to do that there, right? Like, we've been hearing the outside zone scheme was Arthur Smith's kind of goal here. They add a running back that does that better than anybody else in this draft besides maybe Genty. And I just think it's a phenomenal fit, right? I think he's going to end up getting a ton of carries, and it's a good situation where they've revamped that offensive line over the last few years. It's gotten better. And if Aaron Rodgers is there, at least, they'll be able to spread it out a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah, that was my winner. The fit is phenomenal. I think people are still kind of sleeping on Caleb Johnson and his overall output projections as early as 2025. I think it's a phenomenal fit for him, and everyone's talking about the Hampton fit and Genty and, maybe Henderson in New England. Caleb Johnson, this is a really, really good fit for him.
Absolutely. Okay. I do not have anybody for Seattle. And I think Jalen Milroe got put in a situation where a lot of people are saying maybe he will get an opportunity to start at some point, but they did just sign Sam Darnold. And I think there was other opportunities, right? Like, if he went to the Giants, if he went to the Browns, there would definitely be a real argument that he would start in those situations. I don't necessarily see it as clear in Seattle. So I don't have him as a winner, but I'm curious if you do, or if you had somebody else.
I didn't have any clear winners. I didn't have any clear losers either, but I mean, if you like Gray's Abel, hey, that's first rounder that you plug and play on that offensive line next to presumably Charles Cross on the left side of that line. If you have a good duo there, you can kind of, that helps the running backs too. In particular, they're going to use a lot of play action, which fits into Darnold's strengths. So I think I'm not sure it's like a clear winner, like, oh my gosh, this person got so much better because of this pick, but it kind of fits what they do. It keeps them on schedule, so to speak. And I think the left side of that line is really starting to take shape, and that could pay some dividends down the road.
Okay, let's go to San Francisco, who alphabetically I think is actually next now. And San Francisco went basically and said, we need to rebuild our defense, right? They had Michael Williams in the first, Alfred Collins in the second, Nick Martin in the third, Upton Stout in the third as well, and then CJ West in the fourth. And to me, the winner was Fred Warner, right? Who that situation was looking really bleak for him. And I was a little bit worried, right? Like, a guy that, not that he's old yet, but he's getting to that age where it's like, okay, it's going to start to become a concern at some point. And they basically just got rid of any talented player besides Nick Bosa on that defense beside him. And it starts to look a little scary, right? Like, how do you keep up? How do you still be that identity player when you have no team to help support you? And they added essentially 1, 2, 3, 4 guys to kind of help support him in that front 7, right? That's huge, right? Like, that is huge for a player like him who really makes his name from being able to run around the field and make plays as an athlete. You can't do that if the guys around you aren't taking bodies off of you. So I like that for him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go any higher than the best linebacker in the league, basically. But
I think it was looking down, which is why I called it out, right?
Yeah.
There was a downward spiral happening there.
Yeah, they lost a lot of talent, but they really honed in on this in the draft, and you have to like and respect that, because now they, at the very least, should be strong against the run moving forward still. Alfred Collins, Michael Williams in particular, for whatever questions you have about someone like Michael Williams, he's going to give you some great play against the run. And so that's going to obviously help the linebackers. And then if you can keep the offense behind the chains because you can stop the run, theoretically it helps the secondary as well on passing downs to make some plays there and frees them up. But yeah, by and large, the surroundings of Fred Warner got better up front, which wasn't the case 2 weeks ago.
All right, Tampa Bay, I have a pretty interesting take. I don't think a lot of people liked it for Igbuka, but I think both the first and second round pick in Emeka Igbuka and Benjamin Morrison, I think both of them are really big winners here. I'll start with Igbokwe, who, again, goes to a crowded room. There are 3 other receivers in that offense that right now might be, more competitive than he will be, at least 2, right? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are still going to be the primary guys in that offense. So you plug Igbokwe in and you kind of start to say to yourself, like, how does he get to be seen? How does he get to make an impact? And I think it's like in year 1, maybe it's limited, but I think they use him in ways to make him be successful, right? It's not going to be asking him to do things he's uncomfortable with, but I think it's after that, right? Like Mike Evans at some point will be gone. Chris Godwin, the injuries that he's had are probably adding up, right? Which is why they went and drafted Igbokwe to begin with. So you say to yourself, at some point, is this going to be receiver 1? And is it not that far away in the future? So I actually like that situation a lot for him. And then Benjamin Morrison, I think this is probably the best landing spot he could have gone to, right? They have Jamel Dean, they have Zion McCollum, and they don't need him to step in and be a day 1 starter if his injury still isn't fully healed. So allow him to kind of get himself healthy, allow him to develop from guys that already are successful in the league. And then he gets to find his place within that defense. And I'd say year 2, year 3, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I talked about it. Like I thought he could have been healthy, probably cornerback 2 or 3 for me in this draft. I thought of him as that good of a prospect. If we're saying Travis Hunter was a receiver, right, then he would be 2 or 3. But I like Benjamin Morrison. And I think this is just, again, a really good situation where he can take his time and develop in a great defense with great defensive coordinators, great defensive minded coaches. I like it for him. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good angle to take because the obvious angle is obviously, Baker Mayfield. Both of his receivers were injured at various points last year. Now you get Emeka Egbuka who can just pretty much fill any role needed as a wide receiver, and you know exactly what you're going to get. It's a great pick for him, and it is. I am interested to see what happens with Jacob Parrish, the other cornerback selection there. It kind of profiles as a really good nickel. And the Bucs did have Tyke Smith, I think, play a lot of that role last year as well. So I'm interested to see how that plays off each other. But 2, quality talents there that are both young players as well, in addition to someone like Ben Morrison. So I think they're revamping that secondary kind of in the shadows there. Not everyone's talking about it because they're looking at the offensive side of the ball with the addition of Egbuka and the return of Godwin and a healthy Evans and all that. But I think solid job all around in that secondary.
Do you have somebody for Tennessee?
No, not really. That's another one where, look, you were picking first overall. Obviously, it's all about the quarterback and if that hits. So I didn't have anyone in particular. I assume by you asking me that way that you didn't either. I'm not sure I have any losers either. I just don't think, again, because of their situation, that there's any clear winner as opposed to, hey, let's get our franchise quarterback here and then, just continuously improve at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a loser. We'll talk about it on the loser episode. I think Kevin Winston Jr. might be a winner for me in that he was taken in the 3rd round. So that means to me that they don't have serious concerns about his injury, which is a positive thing. I also think it's a defense where he can really make a name for himself and start to stick out. It's a team that doesn't have a ton of talent, right? So when you get a guy like Kevin Winston Jr., a guy that maybe you were saying to yourself, is he going to be a starter right away? And then he goes to a team like Tennessee and you say to yourself, like, this is a fantastic opportunity for him. So I do like it for him. And he's a guy that Ray and I both really liked during the film process. You could go check out old videos of the film and see what we had to say about him. But let's wrap it up with Washington. And I think it's hard because they didn't have a ton of picks. So the impact is going to be slightly limited. I think Josh Connerly and Trey Amos, their 1st and 2nd round pick, both get put into great situations. So either of them could be a winner. But if you look at the draft and say, it's not just the players they took in the draft, but the players they traded for with the draft picks, Jaden Daniels is like sitting on a golden throne right now, right? Like you get Josh Connerly Jr. and Laramie Tunzel to the offensive line. Like, again, neither of those guys were there last year, and what he did with that offense was insane, right? Now you had 2 tackles that one of them is a top probably 15 tackle in the NFL. The other one is a very intriguing prospect that is now has a 1st round pedigree. And then on top of that, they traded a pick for Deebo Samuel, who adds, a receiving threat weapon to this team. They also added Jalen Lane in the draft, who I didn't really watch a ton of, so I don't have a ton of comments on that. But again, it's like you now have Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, Debo Samuel, Terry McLaurin. Like, it's starting to get pretty deep there in Washington in terms of the weapons that they've given him. Another example of a team that just is capitalizing on a rookie contract, and the rookie quarterback doesn't have any reason to fail.
No, and I think stylistically, the trades were the moneymaker for the Commanders because of those throws near and at the line of scrimmage that Jaden Daniels excelled at. And you add someone like Debo Samuel there, who that's his bread and butter as well. I really like the pick of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the running back out of Arizona, which is in the 7th round. So it's like those guys aren't even guaranteed to make the team. Yeah, sure. Okay, I get it. But 5'11", 208, I think he's a fantastic runner out of Arizona. There's not much there at running back as far as like long-term sort of barriers for someone like Krosky-Merritt to have a big role on offense. So that's just a position battle I'm keeping an eye on. You can't call a 7th round rookie a winner, but probably the best situation you're going to get is a 7th round rookie running back draft selection. And if you ever do step into that role, you have a mobile quarterback with all these weapons on the outside that lightens the load on the run game. That could really help you out. So that's just one thing I'm keeping an eye on. Otherwise, I think you nailed the Commanders here.
All right, man. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we sign off?
No, I'm surprised we got through all that. I say quickly. It's an hour and 20 minutes in, but I think we did a good job.
I think so too. All right. Everybody like and subscribe, right? We're doing this because we love it, but the more of you that watch it, the more opportunity we're going to have to bring this kind of content to you. Everybody, please go to all-22.com to sign up today for All 22 Fantasy Football, or go to the App Store, either iOS or Google app stores. You can download the apps today and play All 22. Drafts are going to be started. Leagues are going to start filling up. You want to be a part of it, go there, sign up today. And then just, again, thank you so much for all your support during the draft season. And I appreciate your time. Thanks for tuning in.